So this week it was announced by the Pro Football Hall of Fame who the 25 semifinalists were that move on to the next round of voting where it gets whittled down to 15 finalists for the 2014 Pro Football Hall of Fame class. Now, don't get me wrong, it's got to be hard to whittle down some of these names, especially now when you get from 25 to 15, plus the senior committee guys. That's got to be very hard to pick a class of maybe 4 to 7 people. And this will probably be another class this year that has 7 people because you have 7 people that are worthy of it. Now, one thing that does really warm the cockles in my heart is to see the fact that the 2 senior committee members this year are 2 people that I've long argued deserve induction into the Hall of Fame. That's former Atlanta Falcons defensive end Claude Humphrey, and even more importantly, in my opinion, former Raiders punter, the greatest ever at the position, Ray Guy, a guy whose time in the Hall of Fame is long overdue. If you'd have told me Ray Guy and Jerry Kramer were going to be the 2 members of the senior committee possibilities this year, I'd have been like, this is phenomenal, but this is still really, really good. And I hope that the senior committee and the Hall of Fame voters in general finally get it right. They put both of these guys in, both Ray Guy and Claude Humphrey. Don't give me that shit about Humphrey played on crappy Falcons teams. Okay, so what? There are plenty of other players that played on a lot of crappy teams over the years. Period. Andre Tippett is one example. Played on a lot of crappy Patriot teams over the years. 1 or 2 good ones, a lot of crappy ones. Claude Humphrey was a guy, the first real great, I guess you'd say, Atlanta Falcon, and he was a very good player at his position for a number of years. I think his time has come. And Ray Guy, what more can I say about him? He easily deserves a spot in camp. When you're the greatest ever at your position, not talking about a special teams gunner or anything like that, but we're talking about a guy who changed the way the game was played with his 5-second hang times and his coffin corner kicks, and he, really emphasized just how important great special teams play could be to a football team. Ray Guy changed the NFL. He changed the league. So he clearly, to me, deserves induction. I know you've got a lot of old stiff shirts that should have stopped being involved in the Hall of Fame voting process 15 or 20 years ago that are going to object to this, but the bottom line is they're fucking wrong and Ray Guy deserves a spot. Now you've got 4 first ballot guys in their first year of eligibility moving on, and Derek Brooks and Marvin Harrison and Tony Dungy and Walter Jones. To me, I look at 3 of them that I think will probably be likely to move on to the 15 finalists. That's Brooks and Harrison and Dungy. And out of those guys, you can make a very strong, compelling case for all 3 of them being first ballot inductees. I probably will look at Derek Brooks being pretty much a cinch, in my opinion, to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And then I would like to say Tony Dungy, too. Now, he doesn't have the most sterling resume in terms of a coach that jumps out at you. Hey, he's got 4 Super Bowls. He won 10 divisional titles and all of this. But I think people forget sometimes how bad the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were for so many years as an organization and how much Tony Dungy changed the culture in Tampa Bay and really helped build a winner there. Yeah, he wasn't there when Gruden won a Super Bowl with him, but that was still in large part Tony Dungy's team that he assembled and a culture that he created. And then he goes to Indianapolis and eventually does win a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts. And there are a lot of historical ramifications here. Someday I'd like to see Tom Flores be the first Hispanic head coach inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but I would love to see Tony Dungy be that first black head coach inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think that would be an awesome moment. That's why I would go for him getting inducted this year over a Jimmy Johnson. You can find any year to make an excuse for Jimmy Johnson to get in, but I think it would be a great statement to say Tony Dungy was a first ballot Hall of Famer. That would be an awesome statement. Some of the other guys from the modern era that I think will move on to the round of 15 will be guys like Jerome Bettis and Tim Brown. I got my list here. I think maybe Roger Craig makes it. Ed DeBartolo Jr., Kevin Green, Charles Haley, Jimmy Johnson, Andre Reed, Will Shields, Michael Strahan, Paul Tagliabue, Aeneas Williams. I have my different thoughts on those 12 guys right there. Some that I would argue more strongly for as Hall of Famers, some that I really wouldn't argue for as Hall of Famers, and some that I would really argue for being Hall of Famers this year. When I look at guys that should be Hall of Famers this year out of that group, if I said Brooks and Dungy, that maybe leaves 3 guys in the modern era out of these other 12 that I would say should get in. And based off of the list, I'd go with Strahan. I would go with Tim Brown. And I would probably go with Jerome Bettis. Those would probably be the other 3. So you'd have, in my Hall of Fame class for 2014, Brooks, Dungy, Bettis, Brown, Strahan, Guy, and Humphrey. Those would be my 7. But the biggest omission yet again this year, and it pisses me off to no end, You would think that by and large, the Pro Football Hall of Fame voters, being writers and sports media members, would recognize true greatness in their own field, in their own fucking profession. When you want to talk about people that changed the game, when you want to talk about people that were instrumental in the growth of the NFL over the past 4 or 5 decades, at the very pinnacle of that, on the Mount Rushmore of that, has to be Steve fucking Sabol. It took far too long for his father Ed Sabol to gain induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And now, sadly, Steve Sabol is no longer with us. And for some reason, he keeps getting overlooked every year for the damn Hall of Fame. Once again, he's not even a damn semifinalist. What the fuck is wrong with the Pro Football Hall of Fame? What the fuck is wrong with the writers and the voters for the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Do you guys have a hard-on to cock-block Steve Sabol? In terms of media members and their importance to the NFL, Steve Sabol is at the very top of the list. In terms of people that changed the game, Steve Sabol is at the top of the list. Why do we have an NFL network? Oh, I don't know. Steve fucking Sabol. The way the game is presented, the growth of the game to the American public. There are so many things and so many filmmaking, presentation techniques that have been borrowed by other sports and other forms of entertainment that were ripped off and copied from NFL films, who Steve Sabol was the figurehead of, who ran the company for 40 damn fucking years. And yet, to this day, we can't find a way to get Steve Sabol in the God-blessed Pro Football Hall of Fame. What the fuck is wrong with the NFL? What the fuck is wrong with people in the football writing media? What the hell is wrong with former players? What the hell is wrong with the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio? Steve Sabol's not even one of the 25 semifinalists. You're going to tell me that in the grand scheme of things, that fucking Steve Wisniewski, and no offense to Steve Wisniewski, but just one person I'm bringing up, you're going to tell me that Steve Wisniewski had more impact and meant more to the game and changed the game more than Steve fucking Sabol? The bottom line is, to me, when you talk about the Hall of Fame in any sport, one of the key things you have to say and ask yourself when you're considering that person is, can you effectively tell the story of the game without this individual? The reason you can't tell the story of the NFL without Steve Sabol is because so many things involving Steve Sabol were so important to presenting the game to my father's generation, my generation, my kids' generation, and so on and so forth. You cannot tell the story of the National Football League without talking about NFL films. As a result, not talking about Ed and in particular Steve Sabol. Steve Sabol should have been a semifinalist, should have been a finalist this year, and he should have made it in the fucking Pro Football Hall of Fame. What a goddamn joke. I realize there are a lot of great people that are eligible for the damn honor. There are a lot of great people. And there will be several great names that deserve Hall of Fame induction that just won't get in this year because of the process, because it's a numbers game. But I'll put Steve Sabol and his resume up against anybody that will go in the 2014 Pro Football Hall of Fame class. And I promise you, he measures up. What a joke. What a joke.